Hello, everyone. Kenyon here, Basketball Rewind. Hopefully, people can hear me. I'm going to be covering quite a bit of the second round. Going to watch it together, see what happens, and kind of go over so far in terms of day one who are the winners and the losers. So, without a further ado, still getting the lighting going and setting up. Let's get through it. So Alan Graves obviously got signed by the Raptors. Or sorry, he got drafted by the Raptors, of course, last night. Bruce Thornton, by the way, just drafted by the Knicks. So shout out to that. Bill Nation can't stand Bob. We'll get into that. We will get into that for sure. Um, Last night was a very interesting night. Really good night actually. And the Raptors drafted they drafted Alan Graves at the end of the day. So I'm going to go talk about the Raptors first, and then I'm going to kind of meander through and also talk about the draft that is currently happening on the screen just around the corner from me and go from there. So, few things we should talk about when it comes to Alan Graves. That is, um, he is someone, as I'm bringing the information up right now. He's someone who's basically 6'9", 7-foot wingspan, kind of fits the mold that the Raptors have continued to draft in some ways. Now, I created an image, excuse the pseudo AI image that I'm about to put up on the screen. But at the same time, I think that there are some benefits to them drafting him, even if he isn't the guy that I necessarily would have drafted myself. So here's Alan Graves. We can see I put up how the no ceilings kind of rank him in the different areas. Isolation, which is something that the Raptors sorely need, is one area that he kind of lacks, and he will have to refine his offensive game. But he is 19. He was a freshman at Santa Clara. There are quite a number of players that came out of Santa Clara overall, which is interesting because everyone remembers Jalen Williams most recently. Also, shout out to Kurt Rambis. Shout out to guys like Steve Nash, which a lot of people don't remember that it is Steve Nash, and also Brandon Pazitsky. So they produced some good talent recently. Um, in terms of from that school. He was coming off the bench on that school. It is a mid-major school, so it's not like a Duke. There is rumors that if he went back to school this year, he would have went over to somewhere else, like a Duke. Interestingly enough, yeah. So you see NBA comparisons like PJ Tucker. I say Boris Diaw. I've seen Jay Crowder. So that's some of the ones that I put up here. He's very versatile. He's smart, and I put up his. This is kind of modified from No Ceilings, but I put up his overall stats that you're seeing here in terms of where he shoots on the floor and what the percentages are. And right here is the interesting part because for someone who, yeah, he shot decent volume from outside. We got to see what happens. Um, and welcome, Gio. Um, there are some shooting indicators, but is also some indications that he will be more of an interior player to start off with. Now, he's a solid screener. He's kind of like a mix between, like I said, Boris Diaw, maybe Tobias Harris, and some other guys. Um, you know, Now the fact that okay, he was going to. Oh, by the way, Richie Saunders was drafted by Memphis. So I'm sorry, I'm going to switch between yesterday and today at the same time. So please excuse if anyone wants me to focus just on just on the draft that is going on right now. Just let me know, and I will shift my attention. But you know, it's one of those things where Alan Graves was drafted, right? He was a 19th pick. There was a lot of guys available, and once again, they could have went in any way, shape, or form. Um, and they opted to get Alan Graves, the analytic darling. Now, one of the things is that I'll say Bobby has a plan for sure. He has a plan of basketball that he has in his mind. He has not been the best person at articulating the plan. Now, that doesn't mean he's a good or bad GM. It just means that he's bad at articulating it. So when you're hearing him try to explain why they selected Alan Graves, you're kind of left feeling empty. Um, Whereas a Masai would kind of, you'd feel so passionate and pumped up about like the guy that they just drafted. So it's I'm not judging Bobby on that. It is part of his job is to sell, to be that salesperson, but at the same time, like, yeah, it is just something just to be aware of. No, and yeah, I will get to the I don't want to say the say room for improvement with Alan Graves. Um, when I watch Alan Graves and I put it out there, I said he's a very safe pick, but he's not my favorite pick. That is a safe pick. Like if Hannes Steinbach was there, he would have been a much better safe pick for the Raptors to go for. The way that I look at it is instantly this upcoming year, he's probably going to be more of a Mamu replacement. You get to these moments. I wrote like kind of a mini article, if you will. Basically said like, should you prioritize fit? You know, I don't think that a team like this team, that's the correct way of asking those questions. I'm not really necessarily asking about fit. Now, what I am going to ask though instead is the upside. Now he brings that versatile, switchy, defensive, two-way type guy. They did mention that they like two-way players. Um, I think because again, Bobby hinted at it, but he just didn't, say it with his chest kind of a thing. That it sounds like they were interested in Quaintance, and it came down to the fact that they probably looked at the medicals. And when, by the way, Isaiah Evans, just drafted by Brooklyn, shout out to them. They got a wing, which is good. They needed it. They actually did need a wing, actually. So good for Brooklyn, and Sacramento is on the clock right now. So, you know, you look at a guy like that, you look at a guy who's more of like a connective tissue type guy, which is good. These are all good things about them. And hey, Daryl, thanks for joining. Same with you, Gio. Um, where was I? Yeah, like he brings a little bit of front court. If you're looking at, okay, Mamu's gone. When Mamu's shot wasn't hitting, Mamu didn't do much. Now, this kid defensively, there's a lot that he can do, and I know that there's like kind of a skill to size ratio of like he's more skilled, but he still has a long ways to go as an offensive project, right? Right? I would say that when I see the fact that he struggled around the hoop to finish against bigger players and against bigger competition. Um, that's where I get a little bit concerned about, like, hey, this is a purely analytics pick, and just hyper focusing on the box plus minus. Uh, he is someone who uh, I'm trying to be fair in all ways because I really wanted LeBaron or a different thing, or for the Raptors ideally to get two picks. Actually, they did not do any of those things. They got Alan Graves, but I'm trying to basically say that I think Alan Graves will be a solid player. I think he will be a solid player. I think he'll be a winning player. And I think he will contribute right away for sure. That's why I keep going back to the Mammoth thing. Now, the downsides, Gio has actually in the chat, shout out to you, has actually mentioned it a little bit, is that he's slow. You can see it where his processing of the game, he'll see the right reads, but then sometimes he gets blown by, and his recovery or him shifting over to spots, like his closeouts are a little bit late or delayed at times, not because he missed out on the play, but because he's just so slow at like making that next recovery. So his read has to get that much better to overcompensate for the lack of speed. There are ways that you can improve on the speed, but the speed is largely going to be the speed for him, and he's not going to be the quickest player out here. And I think that that's where the struggles are coming from. Is okay, can he overcome that with size? Size. He has the length, but can he overcome it with strength? Because he didn't always play the strongest on the offensive end. Overall, he's like as a cutter, he's like 79th percentile, 82nd percentile in transition, pick and roll as a roller. Just a tad below the 70th percentile. These are decent. So right now he projects to more be of a call it a play finisher rather than like an initiator. But he's someone that he will see he will make the correct. Malik Thomas, by the way, went to Sacramento. Um, good pickup by Sacramento because I know that they've been looking for a couple guards. They got Darius Cuff, Blake Thomas. Not a lot of defense, but geez, those those two dudes can put the ball in the hoop for sure. San Antonio's on the clock by the way. Um, so to continue on with what I was saying, um, I think that there are fair questions about when you're talking about okay, was he the BPA best player available? And again, if you can hear me, let me know because sometimes my microphone goes a little wonky. Um, but yeah, if he was the best player available, like I can hear that to a certain extent. But when you're talking about the Raptors, who they are, where they were drafting, and all that, you do want to go for more of an upside ceiling swing at that pick potentially. I think that's why people are a little bit frustrated, where it's like, okay, they can buy the non perfect fit, but they're a little bit frustrated by that aspect of it because you look at it from a minutes crunch, and unless they make certain moves or unless they are able to fit certain lineups, like CMB struggled at times this year to get minutes, and I think he's earned his minutes. Like he should not never not be playing. He should be getting at least 25, 30 minutes a night moving forward. From this kid, it's like, okay, you're drafting a guy who you're hoping will factor in. How do you get how do you buy minutes for him if Pirtle is here? Because ideally you don't want him or CMB. I hated CMB at the five. I guess this kid could play small ball five or be switchable with him, Scotty, or whatever. But it's one of those things where a lot of roads are pointing towards there being a potential trade. Let me get to some of these comments as we notice that the Spurs are on the board. Okay, sorry, I have to just scroll a little bit up here. So yeah, I'm just a little bit slow on this. Bobby will. I think Grady is being shopped around. I'm not sure, but this would be a bad move. And I hope they don't do that. The reality is, if Alan Graves had gone to Duke against higher competition, he would have been. I don't know if he would have been for sure exposed, but I think it would have changed how they view him because he would have been exposed in one way, but he also probably would have been came out as a more skilled player. So he might actually, ironically, in next year's draft, he might end up around the same level, where he's like the 19th pick in maybe a weaker draft. Um, but yeah, against different competition, it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened. He's yeah. I don't think he's truly a center. I don't think we have outside of Pirtle a lot of true centers on the roster. They're probably going to have to have him play center just because of the size. He's like the second tallest guy on the roster, sadly. But outside of that, which I really don't like in the first place, because he's 220 pounds. Um, I really don't want CMB to be playing center either. Again, Spurs are still on the clock, just for people um, who are curious about what's going on. Overall, like, yeah, like this, I think this is a good point. I don't know if he wouldn't be drafted, but I think he'd end up at the same spot. Um, it depends for this. Really just depends on the type of muscle that he's putting and how he's managing those muscles. So I wouldn't say that, but yeah, I do because usually you see a lot, not necessarily speed, but you see guys slow down in terms of their agility. Um, yeah, I again, I think that there's things that you can look at where, from a defensive standpoint, like there's a lot to be excited for. Um, but there's also some, I think, fair concerns about this kid who is coming up. He seems like a really great young man, really strong with his faith. He seems to work really hard. comes from like the middle of Louisiana. So I think there's a lot to like about him. And his sister also plays, I believe, for Auburn, but don't quote me on that. So lots of good stuff. But yeah, as we continue to go through. Um, and I will be talking about other teams. I just wanted to really hone in on the Raptors, hone in on this stuff. So again, hone in on Alan Graves specifically because he will be the Raptor pick. Um, the lack of athleticism, I talked about it in my draft talk video, and it's something that will be on display. It's you're really going to be focusing on like how does he help in other ways outside of being like a hyper athlete. And just in general, we don't have a lot of hyper athletes. Trevon Brazil, hopefully I'm pronouncing that, is drafted by. Sorry, Malik Thomas actually is going to the Cavs. So my bad. And Trevon Brazil is going to Denver by way of Sacramento's pick. The LA Clippers are now on the they're on the clock right now. Alan Graves brings shooting, and like I said, I keep bringing up the Mamu point, but we needed to move off Mamu because when Mamu's shot's not working, he doesn't do anything else. If this kid's shot isn't working, he'll at least bring defense and solid rebounding. So I think there is a way that they can play that is good, but this is all pointing towards some sort of consolidation or lateral moves to allow the Raptors to build a team that makes sense. I'm not going to talk about what the value is going to be, but instead who they may want to go for. They may want to go for Miles Turner and then add a higher level guard than what they have, where you can kind of put in with Alan Graves, Miles Turner, one of CMB or Scotty at all times, and then say Brandon Ingram, plus insert a point guard. From an offensive standpoint and like being able to balance those things, there are lineup combinations that are very interesting that can make you punch back up in the East, but not like a ton, but punch up enough to kind of make things interesting. Hey, Rewind, do you think they should draft a guard or a center? Ooh, they should try to get both, in my opinion. Like I would try to get back into this draft and try to get maybe like try to like I wanted them to really be aggressive in the draft to get like two picks. They technically had two picks and they gave away one. And if they had that Pacers pick, even if things didn't all work out the same, um, outside of the Pacers landing that pick because it was originally a top four protected pick, if the um if the say it was like the 13th overall pick or something like that, just for argument's sake, um, I still would have taken that because then you could have gotten Swain and Graves. You could have gotten like kind of the safe, analytically cool floor pick plus a more of a ceiling pick. But yeah, I agree with what Bill Nation says. They need to draft both. For me, if you're gonna, stamp it down, I would say if they can move up and try to get was the guy from UNC, that wouldn't be a bad get from a center standpoint. There's not a ton of I think guys. I know that there is Baba Miller, for example. Um, so there are a few guys that are interesting that are still on the board if they want to go in that direction. For the second rounder, I do lean towards more of a point guard, but ideally a point guard who can be in the system longer term. Because I'm of the belief that when you have a point guard that can run your 905 for a while and make an impact that way, it makes a lot of other development easier from that standpoint. So, but yeah, so we have so we have Henry from North Carolina. He's still on the board. Bob Miller. There's a few other centers. I'm not really big on everyone. I know that there's the guy from Tennessee, Felix. Um, so there are some guys that are potentially there. I know a lot of people aren't big on Braden Smith. I'm also not big on Braden Smith. I don't want another undersized guard, but we know the Raptors. They're not afraid to draft another undersized guard. um, I know there's also Dylan Mitchell. He'd be interesting. For whatever it's worth, not my favorite. Um, but they can go in a lot of different directions. I would actually consider a bigger guard and just kind of get like again they should really try to get a second pick in this year's draft, kind of move up a little bit, even though guys have gone back. Um, let's see, not yeah okay, uh, yeah. Oh man, yeah. San Antonio did draft him, but it's being traded, so it's being rerouted. The person that is on the clock right now should be the Clippers. Let's refresh and see if that has changed. Um, I think that that kind of wraps up my thoughts on Alan Graves. Again, I think he's a solid player. He got to the line a decent amount. He's not like a player that I'm like I see like a huge upside, but like say Boris Diaw with some defense. He's a winning player, and he's gonna add in a way that allows, and he's a high voter player. He's a guy that will eventually allow the Raptors to down the road trade out of a strength if needed down the road. So that's a good way to kind of put it as well. Um, I think he makes quick decisions on offense, and also from the shooting standpoint, he's more of a standstill shooter. Right now, I think we need to get away from positional labels with this team, but yeah, we shall see. Okay, I think that's enough on Alan Graves for now. Um, Now it's time to talk about the rest of the first round as these things. Baba Miller is off the board now. Clippers, good pickup by the Clippers. Really good pickup by the Clippers. Can't be entirely frustrated by that, but yeah. Okay, so let's talk about more of the first round of what happened. It's interesting because um, through, I would say, the first 15 picks, I called them. And then I started being a little bit off with my calls on who was going where. Um, so Agent Abanza, I don't think it was ever in doubt that for Washington and what they just signed, and which is Trey Young. Shout out to Trey Young, of course. Shout out to Trey Young, getting his bag. But Washington's going to be an interesting team. Uh, if I'm a team like the Raptors, they may want to sniff around some of those prospects that are coming up and that are interesting. Um, Carr obviously fell, but yeah, the second pick of the NBA draft went to the Utah Jazz with De'Aaron Peterson. And again, I had some intel that again, I just was not surprised. I didn't want to like compromise any sort of people that are feeding me information, but I just I was fairly certain. I was like 99% certain that like this was going to be the order. um, and Memphis with Boozer, that made sense. They just got rid of Jared Jackson. Some people thought, oh, maybe they'll go for Caleb Wilson, but I think at the end of the day, you're replacing what went out with what is coming in, and you already have your center locked up, and you have a lot of Centric Coward, Gigi Jackson, Santi Aldama. These are all kind of small forward types. I guess some people would argue that Santi Aldama is more of a power forward, or even some people would say center. He's not a center. He doesn't weigh enough to even be a center. But yeah, Wagler, he's been rumored there and swapping places with Braden Burries for a while, and that was kind of, which by the way, OKC again on the clock with a billion picks. Um, so yeah, nothing to that point surprised me. The question was, were the Brooklyn Nets going to go with a big guard or a small guard? I felt like they were going to go with the guard because as much as they liked Yegor, I thought that they wanted someone who could kind of they could pair nicely in that backcourt with Yegor. Now that Yeager's learned some of the guard skills at an NBA level, they can kind of have him fall back and fall more to a better, more natural position. But also, have multiple ball handlers on the court. And here's the thing: with a lot of the lottery changes that we're seeing overall, um, you're seeing teams make moves like the Brooklyn Nets getting Randall in the middle of that draft. Like, like there's a reason why, um, there's a reason why you're trading for Randall. There's a reason why the Brooklyn Nets, if you look at the way that they're building out their team, it's, really tough, get after it type of guys. I do know that some people are a little worried about between Michael Porter Jr. and um, Julius Randle sharing the ball. They do have Jordy Fernandez, and I think that he'll get them to share the ball. Kingston Flemings, again, I knew Atlanta Hawks. Darius Cuff, of course, was going to go to Sacramento, rumored for a while. Kingston Flemings for the Atlanta Hawks made sense to me. I'm going to check on the second round in just a second. But Kingston Flemings made sense because he was kind of the best guard that was left over. It was either he was going to be there or Mikhail Brown Jr. was going to swap. Like, just one of those two guys were going to be there. And Atlanta has been looking for a point guard for the longest time. I know that they just re-signed CJ McCollum. He is not a point guard. He is a stopgap. And that's why they signed him for 1 year and a hefty bag of $21 million for 1 year. Really quickly, let's look at it. Ryan Conwell, good, interesting pickup. They had an interesting draft. I didn't really love their draft. They ended up with Sturts, if I'm not mistaken. So let's just see what the NBA is saying about him. They're saying that he lives at the rim, 215 pounds. He crashes the glass, plug and play, floor spacer. Similar to Dante DiVincenzo. Okay. Yeah, he's 6'4", kind of a guard. He shoots really good. 45, 41, 83 splits, 16 points. He's kind of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, AJ Mitchell was traded. If not, he will be traded. But I think he is traded. So he was traded earlier in the year. So point is that you're going to see something like that, right? Where OKC is trying to replace some of their middling talent with cheaper talent. And because they're already a title team, they're ready to go. All right, let's get to these comments real quick. Bulls are on the clock, by the way. Let's go get to this one. Gio. The issue here is Bobby drafted Graves, but why didn't he trade a second rounder like other teams or even the yeah. I don't know. I can understand them being scared away from acquaintance because apparently he had to get, or he admitted himself, like they have to get another procedure done this summer to clear up some additional stuff. He did have both an ACL tear and a meniscus tear. I don't know if it was a lateral or a medial meniscus, so that is the question. But those are two big, injuries on one knee, and not good injuries, and really tough to recover from. And especially for someone who's 7 feet. Now, I really liked Quaintance, but I can understand a team being scared off from Quaintance. I do wish that they went back and got like the LeBaron, but you knew that LeBaron was only going to fall so far. And by the way, for people who are saying that 76ers have so many guards, not really. They don't really have a second point guard now. They just traded Jared McCain. Lowry's out. And in terms of just guards overall, Grimes would be the only other guy on the roster besides Maxey and VJ. So you have Maxey and VJ. They need another guard, and another guard with bounce because of how they want to play. So that's where LeBaron fits in actually quite nicely on that team for sure. Yeah, I mean, you can ask, but that doesn't mean that they'll give him. The truth be told, he had a down year and he has a hefty contract. So you can ask, and this is where I push back on like focusing too heavily on the price. But as I said, like if I'm the Raptors and if the price isn't too much, and say it's a couple seconds or something like that, obviously there's a point where you're like, okay, not Like you're not giving an unprotected pick to get Turner, right? Like that's not my suggestion. But my point is that from an offensive standpoint, you need to get if you're serious about this year, you need to, especially since you can't really tank anymore, you need to make certain decisions, and that decision needs to be to try to get some sort of more dynamic nature to this team. And he wasn't the only one that I would suggest. Okay. I don't even know. Um, and no, he's not worth it. He Brandon Ingram. Trading him is out of the question. Yeah, yeah, I mean he's injured. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. I know a lot of people keep talking about trading Brandon Ingram, but I don't think Brandon Ingram is really going anywhere. To be perfectly honest. Sorry, I'm just making it my way through these comments as the draft is on. Chicago Bulls are on the clock. I'm going to refresh it. They probably have selected by now, but we will see. Um, nope, still on the clock. You want Jerron Pear? Pierre. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Uh, you want Jaden Bradley. There's not enough possessions in the game for those three people to play together. I'm assuming you're talking about Brooklyn, my Brooklyn comment. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I just want to see how Jordy figures it out. Um, but they got a lot more. They got more talented and they got more grittier. Um, and they still have assets to move, and I think they have money to play around with. So at the end of the day, Brooklyn's going to try to build a team that is competent, and they have a new coach. Hello, Daniel. Welcome. I think you commented on a video or two ago, and I'm sorry that I haven't had a chance to respond to your video. I will check it later, and I will respond to your video. UNC on the board. Yeah. Here's the thing: the second round. Here's a secret about the second round. There's a lot more leverage that these guys have because you're able to kind of maneuver where you want to go because it's more about relationships. Braden Smith is now off the board, of course. So the Chicago Bulls drafted Braden Smith. Shout out to them. He's interesting because he's probably going to be. What is the Bulls? Not is it the Veals or something like that? Whatever their G League team is called. Now he's solid from the standpoint is that he's going to be fun, but I don't expect him to really play in the NBA at a 5'11", 167 kind of size and stature. But again, you sometimes you need these guys to come in and like you know do the two-way thing to essentially a run a good summer league team and b run run your G League squad and help your development. And you can actually get a decent amount of coin doing that, and it can be worth it. He's the only player in the NCAA Division One that totaled 1,500 career points, 1,000 assists, and 500 rebounds. He was also the Division One D1 assist leader with 1,103 assists. And he was ranked second in terms of assists per game. So shout out to him and the John Wooden Award winner. He won it twice, and Naismith Trophy he won once. Named Bob Cousy Guard of the Year and the Big Ten Player of the Year as a junior. Not this year, but in a previous year. So yeah, he's more of a floor general, of course. He's more of an offensive organizer, and like I said, he's probably going to run their G League team, whatever the heck their G League team is. OG had an ACL tear and a meniscus. I remember him having a meniscus tear. I don't know if he had an ACL tear in college. I know he played for Indiana, but like I can't remember if he had both at the same time or whatever. And I know he did need surgery, but like again, it just sounds like the recovery for the year because he didn't really play much this year, and this is stemming back to last year as well. It doesn't sound like the recovery has gone well. So all I'm saying is that I can understand teams in general being a little bit concerned, But again, I've said I wanted Quaintance, so um, yeah. Um, it seems yes, I agree with this statement. We'll go back to the first run in a second, but yeah. By the way, the Rockets are on the clock. Basketball rewind. The also the Raptors won't be the only. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's other teams that are gonna go for these guys' services, but I again, like I said, I don't think just because another team is going for a guy doesn't mean that you shouldn't be sniffing around and asking, and it'll just ultimately come down to like a number of reasons. Also, I just don't know what kind of center the Lakers are looking for. Are they looking for that type of a center? Because he's not a really good rebounder. Um, and like I said, he is a distressed asset. So yeah. Trade announcement. Thunder are making trades. Let's see what the Thunder are doing. I'm gonna try to get these as quick as possible. I don't have like Shams up or anything like that, but let's just try to pull this up right here. Okay. If you see the trades before I'm able to pull them up, please, 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 um, let me know. Because for whatever reason, I'm not able to find it. I'll have to pull up Shams. Yeah. So, anyways, as I was saying, second rounders, you have a lot more leeway from the standpoint of teams wanting to get guys and players being able to dictate where they're going to go. So it looks like the interesting. Okay, so it looks like OKC. The trade is Ryan Conwell to the Miami Heat, which makes sense. They need someone a little bit more grittier, and they're getting the 41st pick in this draft and cash. Um, so they're trading back a couple spots. Yeah, makes sense. ESPN is also reporting that again the Celtics are actively engaged in trade talks um, surrounding Jalen Brown. Not really surprised by that, but yeah, I know some people are surprised by it, but like I said, that is not really surprising at all to me. Um, okay, where was I, folks? Where was I? Okay, let's go. First, most important thing. Let's get back to the chat. Kind of run through these. Thunder making moves, and I went to that. And then other thing is, second round can guarantee you, if you can guarantee a starting roster. I mean, it doesn't have to be a starting roster spot, but it could just be minutes. Period. Right? Like you don't want to be drafted to a place. Take OKC. If you're a guard, you really want to go to OKC. Like you're going to be the fifth guy in that rotation, maybe the sixth guy at this point, right? So, um, I guess you're the fifth guy. You beat out Topic, the guy that recently had testicular cancer, has to have spine surgery, and had a knee issue. Okay, at some point is like maybe not. Um, how do I think of a line? This line could work in spurts, but it really depends on who those other two guys are. You need a guard who is significantly better than the guard that we have at bare minimum. And you potentially need a center who is way faster than what we have. The problem with Graves is that I do wonder if he has the speed to keep up with NBA power forwards. Well, we will start to see that shortly. First test is obviously summer league, where sometimes you have guys who are at least second year guys that come in. So how is how is that going to factor in, right? Like, are these type of guys, is Graves able to at least cover that? If he's not, then he's forced to be the center. But is he going to end up with like a hand looking like this, like CMB, at the end of the of the year because he played too much of the center? I don't know if that's a good idea either. So again, a lot of these things are pointing towards, regardless of how I feel about the front office and if I trust the front office or not, this is all pointing towards the theory of making a trade to actually balance the roster and make a team that's actually competent. But we'll see. I think it can work, but I think the better thing is that you're always able to play two of those guys together really easily. So there's that. Did Charlotte need to draft a point guard? No, but Charlotte did need more of a point guard coming off the bench because Kobe White is not really a point guard. He's more of a gunner. And so they're able to do that. They actually got two guys that I like in the draft, but they got Christian Anderson and his German teammate who they won together in Hannes Steinbach, which is a lot of fun. I thought that that was kind of like a cool get for them. Um, and they kind of gave a scouting report on the other guy, so that was kind of nice and kind of cute. But yeah, okay, so let's go back. See what has happened. Jack Cahill and went to Houston, and Dylan Mitchell, one of the guys that I said maybe the Raptors take. Who knows? And then of course Miami's on the clock, but technically this is the Thunder pick because that trade happened that we announced earlier in the stream. Welcome, James. By the way, I forgot to say that, but yeah, welcome. Um, I don't think that Phylon's going to be a bust. I don't know if he's going to be an All Star. But I think that because he doesn't have that like insane athleticism, but like everyone keeps saying that, and yet Christian Anderson went above him. And I think it's because of the point guard, like his passing chops and the shooting. Farland's a good shooter and stuff like that. I think Farland will be fine, especially under Nurse. Nurse knows how to use and utilize his guards. Um, I think he'll be better than people think. He's a two-way guy. I think that there's schemes that you can use it. Like he projects that if he works on his lower half, his the lower body, and gets stronger legs, that if he, as long as he can handle guys getting into him from a physical standpoint at an NBA level, he'll be just fine. Um, Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What James said. He has too much talent to be a bust. And he also you saw the improvement. Like I really like when guys improve either within a year or from year to year. And he went from not being a shooter to like being one of the best shooters in the draft. Not the best shooter, but one of the better shooters in the draft. He basically shot like 40% when the year before he shot way worse. Took a way higher offensive load and um, yes, the defense went down a little bit, but like it's understandable. Smaller guard, so for those who want to have the the what are they called, like the sour grapes, or well, we didn't pick him, but he sucks or whatever. I would say you could say he's a smaller guard, so he's not as big as like I would have liked, but with shoes on, he's like basically IQ sized. Not a big guard class, like both physically, physically, not overall. There's a lot of guards in this class. Um, all right, sorry, we were meandering through the first round. So back. Um, when Dallas got that coach, and they were on. So I was sitting next to Beyond yesterday. We were watching the game together, and I was just like, he was like, "It's gonna be Burries," and I was like thinking it'd be nice to be Burries for you, and I get why he wants Burries, but I'm like, it's probably gonna be Morez Johnson because they're looking to trade one of their centers. They want to replace that. They want to replace it with a guy who can not only play center in case Lively goes down, because that's the problem is they're really good if Lively's there, but when Lively gets hurt, they're going to have problems. And the problems that they are really going to have and that they are going to struggle with in Dallas is you need someone who can punch up from an athletic standpoint, physical standpoint, And of course, they're going to draft the best defensive guy in the entire class, who really man down those man down the hatches, so to speak. And so um, at number 9, Morez Johnson didn't surprise me. I said that, and of course he got selected, and Beyond was like, oh, okay, well, he wasn't unhappy, but yeah. And then Braden Burries was the next guy that made sense, and it made more sense. Oh, this is interesting. Isaiah Stewart traded to Memphis for 3 seconds. This is an interesting draft because they or move because they just got a bunch of seconds. They got like what 5 seconds yesterday. So this for trading Abuka Curry, who I haven't got to that part of the draft yet, but yeah, um, this is a good move. Um, this is a good move because Zach Edey's going to be healthy. Zach Edey's going to need some help. Sorry. The comments just coming in a little. Okay, there we go. Daryl says, "I wanted to finally see." Yeah, I saw Darius Garland. I'm like, man, um, yeah, I think he'll be fine. He'll be fine. The Raptors could still use that athletic, dynamic guard, like a true, real dynamic guard that we've been missing for a very long time, and we will get one day. Hopefully, one day. I don't know when. We might have to trade for one, but yeah. Wanted beef stew. Yeah, so did I. Good move by Detroit, but it's interesting. So it looks like Detroit is gearing up to make a move, is what I'll say, because they did they had to recoup some stuff that they used to go and get Abuka Corey. Again, I'll get to that in a second. I'm gonna actually put this on this screen here so people can see what I'm kind of working on. But after the playoffs, you saw Detroit was in dire need to like kind of punch up from an offensive standpoint. They needed someone else. Sorry, James, I'm going to take this off the screen. Yeah, people need to move past Euroball. Seriously. Great point. So where were we? Yaxel Lendenborg. Sorry, it's a mouth. Yaxel Lendenborg. So I thought he would have went to Golden State because you heard Pazinski kind of leaking out himself, like, hey, they need to go for a guy that's more ready to go, ready to play, ready to do what he has to do, and ready to contribute. Um, and they didn't really have the time for like a major. I don't want to call it a major, but yeah, like more or less a major project. Um, in a guy like say Nate Ammon. Um, Nate Ammon's going to be solid, but he's more of a project, and they just don't have the time for that. And I know how Steve Kerr doesn't have the best reputation, I'll say, with young players in terms of playing them. So they needed someone who's going to play with a bit of an edge. Draymond's getting a little older, and this guy can punch up a little bit more offensively. I think he's a winning player. So that's the other Michigan guy. You could tell the Michigan guys were a little bit sad. It's like, coach, you're not going to pick me, kind of thing. But yeah, Ademar, really solid pick by OKC, and it's not surprising with how the finals went, with how Chet played and kind of got like bossed around sometimes by like their guards. It was like, okay, and I've always said this myself. I'm like, Chet can play center in spurts, but he's not a center. He's more of a power forward. He doesn't play like a center. And so yeah, Optimus Prime says Grants will be a great player. I'm sure he'll be a solid player for sure. So yeah. Where was I? So yeah, of course, Heat draft Nate Ahmed. They then traded him to Milwaukee to complete that trade on draft night. That part of the Giannis deal made sense. Now that Milwaukee at this point got Burries, it's like, okay, let's go back, and now they get their project. And now with that combined with all their other stuff that they got, now they've started their rebuild officially, and some of their guys are going to be available. So yeah, how many teams have a legit center? Ooh, that's a good question. That is a good question. I'm going to look at the standings and to help me to just remind me of the teams that have centers. Indiana definitely got a center, so um, and that would be one. Boston, when they won, they always had at least pseudo. Like I don't want to say a true center because what is a legit center? What a center is, but like in terms of having size and having someone to play the position, like yeah. So Detroit, Duran, yes, right. That's a center. Um, Boston, you would argue, didn't, but when they won the chip, they had um, Al Horford and Porzingis. Yeah, Bill Nation. We don't. I mean, we have Pirtle, but yeah. Anyways, that's it is what it is. Talking makes a difference on either side of the. Hey man, that's what I mean. How many players make a difference? Kind of moving the goalposts here, but yeah. Cleveland has a center. New York center, right? That's four teams at least, if not five, if you wanted to count Boston within that. Raptors. I don't know if you want to call them having a center. They have a center, but the center is not, to your point, not the most impactful center in terms of the playoffs. I think a lot of people forget the playoffs, and Pearl was getting bounced around and basically benched at some points in that series. It was not pretty. Certainly not pretty. Atlanta Hawks, they could use a center. I think Newell will eventually step into that role. We'll see. But I see Newell stepping into that role for sure. Philly might be a part-time center. He's a center. They got a center. They actually have two centers because I think Drummond played there last year as well. But they also have Joel Embiid, of course. Orlando Magic. Wendell Carter Jr., as well as Mo Wagner and Goga Batadze. They have several centers. Hornets drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner, who played well. Musa Diabate played really well. And I think there's another guy that I'm forgetting. They have three centers. I've lost count. Keep going. Miami, they play Bam. Been at least runner up for defensive player of the year. He may not fit the role of like what a true center is. I would say that he's a center for the most part. They also had Khalil Ware. They had a center. They had two. Milwaukee Bucks. I would argue it was Giannis. Oh, and Miami this year will have a center. Milwaukee Bucks. If it's not Giannis, it would have been Turner, center. Didn't have the best year. Turner didn't, but they had a center. Bulls trade their center, so they're lacking a center. Nets had Claxton. Claxton's gone. But yeah, I mean, is what it is. Pacers were an all hospital team from start to finish, sadly. But the Pacers have now drafted a center after wasting away a whole year. Wizards have a center. They have a front court, I will say. They have Alexander Sarr as well as Anthony Davis. They are very scary. Thunder have a center. Spurs, I know Wemby technically plays more like a power forward at times, but when it matters defensively, the way he anchors it, he's a center. um, let's see. Raptors almost beat Cavs without a center. Yeah, but that speaks more about the other team. So, but to the player, yeah, exactly. I mean, they traded for a center, so went from all hospital team to a center team. Houston Rockets center team. Denver Nuggets have a center. LA Lakers. They technically have Jared Vanderbilt, but that's not really an ideal. It's like a six dude playing a center. Sound familiar? Yeah, no. He's very effective on that end of the floor, but realistically, it's at the point where he's getting played off the floor. Aiton is not an effective center, so you can cut them out. Houston Rockets, as much as they were a dysfunctional team, they had 50 something wins, 52 wins. They had a center. Minnesota, center. Phoenix Suns, Mark Williams, came on Watch, and someone that I'm probably forgetting. They also had like Nick Richards as well at one point. I think they had Nick Richards for the whole year. They had centers. Um, LA Clippers for they had John Collins playing center at some points, but really it was Zubac for most of the year. They had a center. Is Jaden Bradley? Are we already at the Raptors pick? Sorry, we are not at the Raptors pick. Spurs are back on the clock. Spurs are back on the clock. Who did I miss? Hold on. Sorry, I was on my center rant. Tyler Bedell. Or sorry, Bilo Doe. I'm really bad with names at times if I don't practice it. So sorry about that. Bobby's new system has no center or point guard. Yes, this is true. Where was I? Golden State technically doesn't have a true center, but they're a special type of team. They can get away with it. I don't know for how long, but they've also struggled a little bit. New Orleans has a center, but they need to upgrade in that regard because I don't think that Yves Missi is as good as they think. Draymond, yeah, he's a center, but like it's kind of not a center at the same time. It's like, is CMB a center? I don't think CMB is a center. But yeah, I think CMB is much more talented than Draymond from an overall standpoint. But obviously, if he can beat Draymond, like that is, I mean, when people compare Scotty to like potentially being like a supercharged version of Draymond, it should not be an insult. Draymond is a Hall of Fame player. Okay, one of the best defensive players I've ever seen in my entire life. Incredible at understanding the game and like super super good at like how would I say like he was basically the straw that stirred like Golden State's drink from an offensive standpoint. I don't think Steph would have been nearly as he would have been successful, not nearly as successful without Draymond on any of those teams. So should not be an insult for the record. But yeah, where was I saying? Dallas Mavericks, a lot of hospital, a lot of hospital, but they have Lively, Gafford, for sure. Sacramento Kings, he was injured most of the year. They have a center. We're going through. A lot of these teams have centers. Walker Kessler, injured this year. He's a center. They also have Jared Jackson Jr., who can kind of play the center, but he's more of a power forward, in my opinion. They're going to be a very interesting team this year. A lot of these teams, point being is a lot of these teams actually, when you think about it, have centers. And if you go through which teams have bigger centers and are getting bigger, there's a lot of these teams that are going in that direction. So I think that there is a world where the Raptors could have used this. Malik Brown, drafted, of course, by the Sacramento Kings. Okay, continuing on. After this, we got to the Chicago Bulls. I saw Chicago Bulls, and I was like, "Oh, okay, they're gonna go Cameron Carr or Dalen Swain." I was like, they want someone to pair next to Caleb Wilson. They don't need a point guard. They may want a center, but like I think that they're fine without it. And I was like, they really want to solidify and double down on those wing type positions. And to me, when you talk about playoff skills, it's one thing I never got to talk about with Coach. But I want to talk about playoff skills and who has it, who doesn't have it. And like wings have an easier time gaining those playoff skills, especially if the athletic wings who can get their own shot or get to the basket at will, which Dalen Swain did. He was kind of like a secret kind of like I hope if he falls if Chicago got Cameron Carr, the Raptors should have taken Dalen Swain and ran with it. I was not as big of a Cameron Carr um, guy, but for Dalen Swain, I was totally in on it. Sturts drafted by Memphis. That surprised me. And then shortly after he was traded for assets and stuff like that to OKC. OKC drafted Abuka Corey. They traded him back to Detroit. They've done a lot of movement of guys. Um, they got the guys that they wanted for a lot cheaper than what they wanted to what they would have paid for them otherwise. In general, Christian Anderson, the second German, and then of course Alan Graves. So you had a number of guys on the clock. I joked, to be honest. I said it's going to be Karim Lopez. I actually think Karim Lopez. He plays with sports. I think he'll be fine. He'll be a fun player. But I was a little bit. I was like, oh, we'll get like Karim Lopez, and then I jokingly said it's going to be the analytics pick, and then it was the analytics pick. Um, Dallas on the clock, Magic on the clock. Let's look at it. Okay, Emmanuel Sharp. Emmanuel Sharp. So let's okay. So Emmanuel Sharp is a guard. Some of these guys I have not fully um looked into um in its entirety, but yeah. So it's from so he's born in Tel Aviv. So I'm guessing his dad was a player who played in Tel Aviv because they have a basketball community there. Um, I didn't know he was Canadian. I did not know he was Canadian. His mom. That's very interesting. Um. Anyways, stay tuned, Team Canada. 6'3" guard, 208 in terms of his size. Coming and playing out of Houston. Houston, of course, playing with I believe Kingston Flemings as well as Chris Senek, who we will talk about in a second. He did pretty well. He helped. So he played with Shed. Helped Houston reach championship game. Of course, I think that was the year that they had. Um, what's his name on the Pacers? Walker. Um, Jay Walker. I'm forgetting his name for a second, but yeah, the, yeah, the guy that was like, I do not want the Raptors to pick this guy. um, yeah, NBA comparisons to KCP, Devin Vassell. The problem with a guy like this is that when you're 6'3" and you're basically more of a shooting guard, I get a little bit nervous. Felix Okepara, I kind of wanted him to come. He was a guy that I was more interested in the Raptors selecting, um, from the size standpoint. So he's 6'10", 237, and of course, played soccer in Nigeria. He's a senior. He's an older guy from Tennessee. I think the Magic are doubling down on that Vision 6'9", Vision 6'10", because the Magic like being a bigger physical team, and I also think that you're going to see um, guys in for the Magic. I think you're going to see guys like Jonathan Isaacs. I think he might be expiring this year, but he's kind of, who knows what happens to him. But you want a cheap replacement for that, basically. That's a little bit bigger because he's closer to 6'8". Okay, now that we've kind of discussed that, let's get back to the first round. Spurs got Jaden Quaintance. I think that made it more mad. I was more mad at the Spurs getting Jaden Quaintance than us not picking Jaden Quaintance. Because it's like, if he's healthy and he works out in any real way, shape, or form, the Spurs are going to be the best defense in the NBA for the next 10 years. They are going to be scary. Like, physically, they are going to be imposing. The Magic gave up a 3-1 lead and their locker room is in trouble. Yeah, I mean, the Magic, if I was the Raptors and they wanted to swing big, I would be looking at a guy like Franz Wagner. I don't know how that's going to work out. But the Magic also have a new coach. They may not make all the moves right now. They may wait until the season starts and make moves then. But yeah, Tankathon has, yeah. This is a good move. This is the move that we should do. I would not be mad at this move. Please do this move. They will probably not do this move. Um, Karim Lopez drafted by Detroit. He was traded to Memphis for Abuka Okori. Smart move, really smart move. I think Karim Lopez fits in more of like a long-term developmental project wing. Fine, they have a whole bunch of guys in a crowded Memphis market. Um, with like again Gigi Jackson, who's probably on his way out this year. That experiment's kind of coming to a close just because of injuries and other things. But fun player. That's a player that I think if the Raptors want to swing big, I don't want to say swing big, but if they want a middle of the road swing, they may want to take a sniff at that because he can punch up offensively. Um, but yeah, they get Abuka Akori, and the thing about this move that I really liked is that by getting Abuka Akori, the Detroit Pistons now have someone to pair next to Cade. Um, at times, they were hoping that Jaden Ivey was going to be that. Jaden Ivey is wandering in the park right now, preaching the word. Bless him, bless his heart. Might be on Dundas somewhere, uh, handing out pamphlets. He's not interested in basketball. Um, it is what it is. But good move by Detroit. LeBaron I already kind of talked about. I think it's a really good get for Philly. And then of course, like, what does the Atlanta Hawks do? They were rumored to move their pick. They picked more of a guard for the first. They now have a I know he's like center forward. I think he's more of a forward, but he's got some girth to him. So if you pair him next to say Newell and um, I do expect the Atlanta Hawks to make a move for someone, um, especially with them not getting Jalen Brown. They might still get Jalen Brown, but if they since they haven't gotten Jalen Brown, I would I wouldn't be shocked that if they use say Onyeka Okongwu to send him out and get in some sort of center down the road. So yeah. This one was an interesting. Oh, Cameron Carr. You knew like at some point the Knicks are like, we'll just take found money. Cameron Carr just fits nicely into their developmental system. He can take his time to come along, and if he comes along in any sort of way, like him coming to that championship Knicks organization with a little bit of athleticism, you can think of him as like a kind of more refined Jacoby Walter. I think Jacoby, in some ways, just because he's younger, he has a little bit of higher upside. Um, I think Jacoby's built better from like a lower body weight standpoint. Cameron Carr is a little bit longer. Very similar though, similar athletic profile, similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, and then of course, what happens is Cameron Carr gets traded to the Lakers, and all of a sudden it's just like, what in the world is happening? And sorry, I'm not reading chat just yet, just because the chat's on this screen or whatever. But yeah, so of course, Cameron Carr gets traded to the Lakers. So he went from smiling to beaming because he's like, okay, I get to play with Luca. Um, you get a guy like Dalton Connect, who's kind of fallen out of favor for the Lakers, and I think that this guy is going to be really good for the Lakers. I think he's going to pair really nicely. His defense was not as good as I would have liked. Again, that lower body needs the core and the lower body needs to get stronger for him to be productive at an NBA level. But he might be very interesting, and he's a really good guy to pair around Luca. I don't know if I like how much they paid Austin Reeves, but at the same time, they deserve to pay Austin Reeves, and because he or Austin Reeves deserves the money at some level because he took a nice haircut to stay there the last time um, and help. Um, yeah, this is they're doing solid by him. It'll be interesting to see where LeBron is. So let's see. Next draft, Tyler Nickel, Cameron Carr traded to the yes to the Lakers. Um, 60th pick. Didn't someone lose their pick this draft? Or I guess I'm maybe I'm just assuming that like the league was supposed to conclude their investigation for this year's draft, and they didn't. And so they got, of course, rewarded with this draft for cheating with Kawhi. But yeah, hey, it is what it is. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm behind. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry, folks. Let's see. So Dallas is on the clock. I will catch back up on the second rounder. Um, Tyler Nickel drafted, trade to the Knicks. Okay, we'll get back through my first round review. But first, I saw a comment. I like this. Every other GM is making shrewd moves around the Raptors, and they're just sitting on their hands and doing squat. Yeah, I mean, this is my frustration. We'll see what the Raptors. I mean, there's nothing I can do but see what the Raptors do. But it just feels not inspiring right now because it's like the team isn't very well balanced. But they have some assets. They also have some of their flexibility taken away from just handing up bad contracts. I think that their best option is to go for some of these distressed assets around the league. I mentioned a guy like Turner. Um, I would not be giving up firsts for Turner, but maybe it's a couple of seconds. Um, and Grady and whatever, and then you can kind of put a bunch of shooting on the floor finally. Because the problem is that like a Yak is solid in some regards, but he has a bad back. He's slower, and his style, even though Turner's not the perfect center for what people want, stylistically, Turner's a lot more dynamic than Yak. He shot 38% on threes. He shot over 40, I think 45% from the field because he's more of a jump shooting center. Um, Even though he had a down year, he's still like a rim protector. He still has some juice left in his game. He's an older guy. Of course, in Raptors fashion, we always get guys like 4 or 5 years too late and say, hey, I was always thinking of trading for you. But yeah, but I think that the Raptors need to make a move to get a little bit better. Miami Clippers. Sorry, I'm missing this. 49, Denver on the clock. Okay, sorry. Okay, well, so we're one spot. So again, Vasir could be it. Vasir could be it. Do I think Ingram isn't worth the money? I didn't have any problems with Ingram's contract. The thing that I had, the reason why is because it was only a 3-year deal. However, I was probably one of the few commentators that was saying to myself, I wouldn't have done this deal. I was very public in that. I thought it was an okay deal, but I was like, if you do this deal, you really should be trading the 2020, um, um, like basically not the Pacers pick, because like you had your GM and your coach, and Dan Tolsman. Everyone was talking about this year's draft. So to me, if this year's draft is also special, and they viewed it like that, regardless of the pay, because at the time the Pacers were not looking like they were going to be in the NBA Finals either. So let's not get it twisted, right? So it looked like it was going to be essentially like some sort of level of a middling pick, anyways. So, um, like, why not keep that pick, and trade a future pick? Why not trade a 2027 pick? Um, they That is not a trade that is going to age well. Um, a lot of people thought that Brandon Ingram could be at the level or was even better offensively than Siakam, and the numbers and the eye test and everything just demonstrate that he's not. And from a playoff performance standpoint, like I think people have bad memories. Like first of all, Siakam showed in the last one, like Eastern Conference Finals MVP, well deserved. Um, I thought people were like, "Oh, OG's gonna shut down Siakam." Didn't happen. Tried to warn him. Is what it is. Um, Either way, I think Ingram's okay. He's more of a one-way player. He doesn't have the defense. Um, Remember who was guarding Shea during possessions last year? It was Siakam, by the way. Uh, I just think that they made a bad move with the Siakam move to begin with. Out of ruining the relationship. They either should have traded him earlier or signed him and then traded him later, and signed him to a fair deal. And I don't think that the disagreement was about the length of time. And I think that the commentators that were not fans of Siakam were mentioning how he would athletically fall off a cliff, and I was like, the way that he takes care of his body, the fact that he had not played a lot of AAU growing up, meant that he has way less miles on his body than the average NBA player at that age. And so, when we talk about primes, we have to talk about it differently. And in terms of him maintaining his level of play, I think that's going to be a lot longer. And his game has changed and is very floor bound in terms of spins and different jukes, different ways of getting around and to the hoop. That for his and he's a good size. I just see his game, uh, you know, aging well, and it's too bad that there were rumors. Looking back, they could have probably gotten um, Donovan Mitchell and a whole bunch of other players along the way had they made different decisions and not held on to Fred and OG at times. They did that. Donovan Mitchell with Siakam and Barnes would have been very interesting as a pairing. I digress. Is what it is. We move on. What comes first? I'm gonna go away from the Mars thing, but it might be a close. It's a close second. I think the Raptors might actually acquire a second. I'm gonna speak it into existence, but it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. Two 7-footers and a point guard still on the clock. You know what? Don't read into that too much. Yeah, I mentioned that Turner is a bad rebounder. Yes. I think the key thing though, opponents get 10 second chance points instead of Cavs getting two. Hey, I mean, hey man, you have Graves, you got to put him to work somehow, I guess. Again, I think that there's ways to make it work, but my point is that they should be looking to punch up offensively and change the look and makeup of this team if they're serious. Um, Good take. There's Yeah, the what the Raptors have done in the second round of drafts has really bothered me. The Raptors are on the clock right now, so we will see who they go for. But last year you had Maxime Reynaud. Year before, I'm not the biggest fan of him, Filipowski, but like I was more in favor of taking Filipowski over Mobo. But I understand that they wanted to do Scotty a solid. Cool, cool, but I don't see him as an NBA player. We'll see this year, but it's like you have another 6'6" guy that literally got replaced the following year by a guy who is same size stature, but way more talented, obviously. So yeah, and Maxime Reynaud was one of the best rookies, so could have had two of the best rookies, and two of the best rookies that would have fit because he would have been a center that would have fit. He would have helped in the playoffs, by the way, too. But we got a guy who's a dog, who's a two-way, who probably will not be playing for the Raptors at anytime soon. But he is a really solid Dino 5 player, and he did do well. Like he is still a dog in the NBA and stuff like that. It's just he's undersized. He's a 6'2" guard who struggles to play make and is primarily defensively focused in terms of his skill set. BI is too soft. Breach. I don't know. We'll see. He's got to opt in or opt out. I mean, if Ingram is injured this year, he's going to opt into his deal, so he's not going to exactly be able to demand. And sorry, but Rich Paul even said that we were willing to pay the most for Ingram when, and that was then. If he's injured or whatever, I don't think. My point is that Ingram at age 30 something or whatever, uh, I don't think that he's going to be able to demand like $50 million unless the cap just like explodes, which the cap is restricted to raises of only 10% or 13%. So again, I love the speculation, I love the passion of it, but like we're getting way too caught up on like what someone's going to ask for next free agency before we've even reached this free agency officially yet. Um, so and also, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you have the leverage to negotiate. Denver Nuggets, of course, selected Bryce Hopkins. So thank you for the call out there, Daniel. You are helping the stream along. So yeah, he had leverage. Um, but if he wants to leave for that, then cool. Yeah, Raptors on the clock. Raptors on the clock. I like this idea. They have to take. They don't have to do anything because they march to the beat of their own drum, as we see. I hope that they do have that trauma. Um, if Webster doesn't, I don't know if he's the worst, but it's not great. Yes and no. The thing is that as Yak's money gets more and more guaranteed as time goes on, and as they make playoffs, and or if he plays more games, it Turner actually makes less. But for this upcoming year, Turner makes more. So yeah, there's not really a lot of good options, by the way. So yeah, they could take that. And it's Jaden Bradley. Hasn't refreshed here. It hasn't refreshed on my end yet, but it is. I'm going with what the chat is saying, so hopefully people are not trolling me. It's Jaden Bradley. So let's look at Jaden Bradley um, from Arizona. Oh man, we got a small guard again. Nice. Okay, let's discuss Aaron Bradley. I am just pulling up some notes, and we can talk about Aaron Bradley and how excited we are that he is going to be a Raptor as we this team, man, this team. Um, I'm happy for the young man though. Okay, so Aaron Bradley, age 22. Again, this is what the profile from No Ceilings is. So, um, essentially, what you have is a guy who they are suggesting is very much in the ilk of a Colin Gillespie who just got some money, or a Fred VanVleet, or a Ryan Nemhard. Not Andrew Nemhard, but Ryan Nemhard. He was a senior. Um, they basically said if you need like 15 minutes of a guy who can kind of like put the ball in the hoop, then it's great. Uh, he can play make a little bit. He is more closer to being okay. You know what? I'll say he's closer to a pure point guard rather than which is why the Fred VanVleet thing is kind of weird. I'll take the Colin. We'll go with Colin Gillespie. Okay, Colin Gillespie. Um, he runs pick and rolls in a team as ease, with ease, and he's able to take advantage of broken plays, um, decent handle, solid footwork. He can kind of because he is 6'3", he has enough of a size advantage when he has his shoes on. He's actually closer to 6'4", but he has some size advantages where he's going to be able to get into guys. This is your summer league point guard, by the way. He will potentially challenge a guy like Shed this year. The free throw rate is maybe not as high as you'd want. Like as an isolation player, he's in the 20th percentile, but he can create his own shot. He can dime guys up. He's okay in the half court, not great, kind of close to the average. Not a great spot up shooter. But again, we're talking about second round. Um, he does have vision. Um, 5.3 DPM, 9.0 DPM, and 18 PER. So he's solid. The effective field goal percentage is not great. Um, there are spots on the floor that he shoots really well. On the right hand side of the floor, he shot about 43% um, above the break, 38% below the break. And on the other corner, slow volume 4 of 7, but 57%. And then there's at the top of the arc, he is not like a true above the break 3 point transition pass back 3 point shooter, 30%. But again, expect 905 fodder with this guy in a way. And I say that because they need guys beyond Chucky Hepburn. They need more of a true point guard, so to speak. So I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be solid for the developmental, long term development of this team. Um, I do think uh, the tough thing about him is that he has to become a much better finisher and has to put on some weight, so to speak. Um, I know he's like for a guard and at his size, he's 205, but he still needs to. The only way that you're going to become stronger is either you grow, which he's a senior, so that's probably not going to be it, or you have to get stronger. And the athleticism for him, I mean, he's more of a straight line driver, doesn't really have the craft to kind of like shift on the x axis moving forward, looking towards the hoop. So side to side craft is not great, but again, I think that they're not really asking for too much from this kid. Um, put up 13 points, 13.3 points a night, a 3.4 rebounds, had some steals, no blocks, low turnovers. So it was basically like a just a touch under 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. I think in the second round for the 50th pick, it's not bad. It really isn't bad. And our second Arizona player that we've picked in a couple of years. So yeah. All right, let's go back to these. So Bobby's allergic to bigs. I'm not. Visar going undrafted. I mean, he could go undrafted. We're running out of picks, and he could come to the Raptors in that fashion. So, it is possible. Welcome, Jaden Bailey, to the Toronto Raptors. It's good to have you, and we do need some guys in our developmental system. And we'll see what he has to bring, of course. Cool Cato, welcome, welcome, welcome. We did need a guard. We did need a guard. Someone else challenge Shed down the road as well. Worst GM, not necessarily, but is not awe-inspiring right now. I'll say. Try to be, yeah. Undersized. I mean, 6'3", 6'3 3/4 is not undersized as a point guard, but he's not massive. Shake my head out. Yeah. Listen. Okay. Jamal Shed's very small, so yeah. Um, yeah, we aren't afraid to draft smaller guards. He's not a big guard, but yeah. 6'2", Elijah Martin. That was nasty work. That was nasty work. We also took Marquise Noel. That was pretty bad. That was probably the worst. I don't think we drafted him though. We signed him, but there were other options like Craig Porter Jr. Of course, was a guy that was like I was on a stream with someone else, and the guy was like in the chat, and he like knew Craig Porter. He was like his roommate or whatever. He's like, "This dude, you got it," and like I was like, "Okay," and then he was like on the Cavs. This is a good point. There's not really much of a difference in strategy. I think if you look at Bobby's strategy versus Masai's strategy, so for him to say it wasn't me all those years and then have the same strategy proves the point that like if you wanted something different, then you should have just cleaned house rather than being cheap and then doing the chat GPT thing and then giving him an extension. Um, as a 3 point shooter, I will say, so this is going to be the biggest difference is Jaden Bradley. If you're asking about Jamal Shed, Jaden Bradley shot 39.4% from deep last year, overall. So Jamal Shed is not doing that. How that translates to the NBA, we are about to find out. Um, but he's like I said, he's definitely going to be on the G League roster. He's definitely going to be on the summer league roster. So yeah. Yeah, this is tough. This is probably the toughest thing. Hold on, folks. I just need to take one quick break. All right, sorry about that, folks. When duty calls, it's my father that called, so of course it's important to speak to your parents if you can, if you have that relationship with them. Okay, where was I? So, is this a fail? I mean, the thing is that the second round, you really have to like. There's a lot of maneuvering that the agents do at that point, so that's why it's like I always say, if you really want a guy, try to get a try to get a second first round pick. There's a lot more maneuvering that goes on once you hit the second round. Uh, First Arizona pick. Yes, I agree. We did lose out on Walker Kessler, and in hindsight, that is really unfortunate. But yeah, um, yeah, he's an average size guard that doesn't shoot well. I mean, again, I think I'm more worried about the volume. There's areas where he doesn't shoot great. There's areas where he shoots all right. Um, let's see. The idea that the best Raptors available is out the door. Yes. Yeah, I don't buy the whole best player available, but if they want to say like we are heavily invested in analytics and that's the way that we're drafting, say it with your chest, stuff like that. I'm okay with that. Like it is a strategy. It's not the strategy that I would select, but I'm okay with that. But they need to do a better job of outlining what they're doing. Hawks traded for that's really annoying. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So 52, 2 spots later, you get Vasir. And listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, the Raptors are gonna look back and regret not at least like getting an additional second round pick for like cash or something like that, and not getting this guy potentially. Um, Atlanta is just killing it. Fleming's, I think, is going to be solid for them. They're a really good team. They're punting on the cap space with CJ McCollum. Watch them in free agency as well. They're going to make some sign and trades. I think sign trades are going to be very impressive. Um, I'm going to skip that one comment. No backup for Yak. No, Yak has got hey man, CMB is apparently the backup. We got a 6'6.5" backup for Yakapurtle. Um, That is the big move, yes. Uh, it is a little bit, but there's another thing. There's a new second round exemption, and that is really the thing that is changing things for teams because now you can sign a guy in the second round to 4 years. Um, and remember, second round you can sign them to any amount of money. So Andrew Nemhard's original contract was actually higher than the standard like minimum deal that like second rounders get. Um, But here's the thing about a guy, yeah, TJD. We got TJD instead. You can now get bird rights, full bird rights, and so essentially you get the restricted bird rights on your second rounder. So it basically instead of running into a situation like the Mavericks where you get to the end of that of because before you would have had to sign them to like a 3 year deal essentially, and if you did then you lost the bird rights. We did that with Norman Powell. That's why he got an early extension. So usually it was like you signed them to a 3+1 with the one being a team option back in the day. And then you would make that decision on whether you're going to like up them there or you're going to sign them long term. And if you didn't, if you went to the fourth year, they'd be an unrestricted free agent. So it was a little bit annoying because you're like, okay, you got this guy who's going to become an unrestricted free agent. You just had to make an early decision. The Mavs did that with Brunson. They signed him to a 3 year deal. They did not have a team option, and then they decided to shortchange him on the money, and the rest is literally all history as of today. Because if they would have paid him properly and offered him a proper contract initially, he wouldn't be a Nick right now, and we'd be in a different situation. It's not officially the Jalen Brunson rule, but it's just you can think of it like a Jalen Brunson rule. So yeah. So I think that's the bigger thing than the second apron. I think it's what we're seeing right now with how teams are approaching it is more based on the lottery rules changing. So teams like the Nets making some of the moves that they made they're making those moves because they're not tanking. You cannot tank your way to prominence now. You have to at least be a middling team and then fall out. In a way, that would be like the best thing that could happen to the Raptors if you want the Raptors to get another good pick would be the Raptors to fly high. We're not going to say injuries, but say they fly high for whatever reason, they lose out or whatever near the end of the year, kind of like this year, but then they just make the play in and then flame out, or the other way where you're almost like the Charlotte Hornets, where you fly moderately okay, and then near the end of the year you rise back up and you don't quite make it. You're in the play-in and then you're out, but then you could win the lottery more easily because the rules have changed. So yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, how many people talk about second round exceptions and stuff like that? It's not the most exciting thing to talk about. Um, yes, yeah, yeah. It's that is true. 15 pick gets 31 and one gets 45. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it also screws you over for the for in terms of tanking for that second round as well. So. Hey man, Temple. Temple's got one of those spots. Um, I'm not even. Yeah. I mean, It's not even about the players. It's more about again, like, okay, I feel like a lot of people aren't happy because they aren't. They're a little bit worried about the Raptors actually pulling off a move and making the correct move, or even a move that moves them forward. I mean, there's not the like Turner, for example. Turner's not the perfect move. Okay, he's not the perfect center. There's better centers out there. Uh, those centers will cost you more. There are centers that are worse that'll cost you less potentially, but not all of them will have the same impact. So, but you put yourself in this situation because you overpaid for Pirtle in some ways, especially from a length of contract standpoint. It's a very long contract into the 2030s. I think 2031 is when it's done. Um, and it's nothing against the players individually, but it's like the decision making surrounding when they give these guys the deals, where it's like you didn't have to. You could have came into this offseason with Pirtle basically like in the same situation, and said, okay, fine, you can opt into the deal, and that longer term extension would have been lower. It wouldn't have been what it was. So that's where you go. Um, did I finish the first round? I don't think I did. Um, right, I did not. Okay, so Sergio goes to Dallas. He's a guard, but he's more of that 6'6" longer guard. I saw him early in the draft process. I think he's good in terms of like long term. I think he's a bit more of a project, but I think he could work well. But I was speaking to a friend of mine, um, who I believe might actually have a scouting job because he just suddenly disappeared from the ethos. Um, and I know that that's what he was looking for, but he worried about his court vision and the basketball situational awareness on the court. We'll see how that translates, but I think he's a long term project for Dallas. Then Terrace Reed Jr. So of course they know that a guy like Valanciunas, he's probably out. He's probably leaving the NBA because that's what he wanted to do last year. And I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, so Terrace Reed Jr. got drafted by Nuggets, and then he got traded to the San Antonio Spurs. So the Spurs did get a center. They got two centers. So if one can't play, they got the other one. So it's almost like the inverse of what we do. But yeah, they're doubling down on what they need. And then, of course, Boston takes a swing. They get Chris Senak. I really like this for him. Senak is also very, very nervous. You could tell, but this is a good landing spot for him. There are minutes. I know Boston's center this year, definitely. Um, I think it's Queta is how you say his name. I'm just gonna look up so I can see his name. Yeah, Queta, Nemius, Queta. He didn't come out of nowhere, but like he got real playing time this past year, and he was basically more or less a double double. Defensively, locked things down. Obviously, Boston, their end of season didn't work out the way that they were hoping, but they still got a lot of guys. They still a lot of things did work out for them, in fact. And sorry, I'm just kind of closing down things that I don't need to have open right now at this exact moment. All these NBA tabs. Um, I think that there are minutes for Chris Senek, and to have him as a long term kind of project in their wings. I mean, you're seeing Jordan Walsh. He was able to get some minutes this year. You saw Hugo Gonzalez, um, who was a guy that I wouldn't have minded the Raptors kind of get back into the mix for. He was actually originally for last year's draft. He was supposed to be, how do I put it? Like he was originally seen as like a top 10, top 5 pick at one point, and then fell down. I was like, the Raptors should think about getting this dude, and he fell to the Celtics. Celtics took him super late in the draft, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and look at that, but like, yeah, and really, really good pickup for them. I see James. The Boston might trade JB. I was talking to Mouth of the North, Reese. He doesn't think so. I think so. I think that he's going to be traded. So I agree. It just there's too much smoke surrounding it, and even though Brad Stevens said, hey, we're all good, we're all happy, then yeah. This is the case is that after years and years, it's like the Masai stuff where I was getting frustrated with Masai and people were like giving me flack and saying I'm not a real Raptors fans, but I'm like, there's 5 years where you're trying to tell me that this guy was like outthinking the league, and then I'm wondering did he outthink the league to the point of outthinking himself? Um, what is the value? And Bobby's part of it. What is the value of an undersized point guard? Again, I don't think I think he's average size for a point guard. You know, He's like 6'3", and he's actually bigger than IQ, to be honest. IQ is like 6'2". This guy's 6'3" and 3/4, so he's almost 6'4". So in shoes, he's closer to like 6'6" or 6'5", let's say. Um, so I'll say that. Um, he can shoot the three. I think having that in a guy like that who's closer to a point guard, closer to a pure point guard and stuff like that is better to have in your developmental system than not having a guy that can like get after it at all, or a guy, you know what I mean? Like they I think that this addresses more of an issue than some other guys that they could have drafted at that spot, or some other directions that they could have went. By the way, shout out to Coach Cole Pete. Was flipped to Phoenix by way of Dallas. That was a solid move by Dallas. Can't remember what it was for, but yeah. And Alex Caravan was traded via way of the Cavs to Sacramento, of course. So yeah. Finally, let's go into this. We're getting close to the end of this draft. We'll kind of review the second half of the draft, not in full because we've kind of been doing it as we go, but just some of the ones that we missed really quickly. Grady Mobo won't be getting playing time. I mean, I don't even know if the rookie can get like a lot of playing time. So yeah, I don't see Mobo getting any playing time at this point. Um, I would look for trades for Mobo and then decide whether or not you want to opt in on his team option or not, because he would be great as a trade fodder. Um, Otherwise, I think you know, to James's point, he said wave, but technically you just don't have to pick up his options, team option this year. So yeah. If they still had Chomsky in the 905, yeah. I think that they want to improve on the 905 long term, regardless of what happens. I can't say, but I can't say what everything that I want to say. What I will say is they have been interviewing guys for scouting positions on the Raptors. I won't say the names. If it happens, then I will say it. But right now, I can't. But I know that they are trying to make improvements on the scouting staff. So if that happens, I think it'd be good. Be good to see, and I think it's important to replenish the front. There's basically been a level of brain drain that has happened in the front office that they need to replenish. Especially at these lower ranks, like the guys who scout, the guy, it's like Dan. Everyone just moved up a bump, and then since the championship, you've lost guys like Phil Handy and other coaches, and you've replaced them with like the Noah board and like robots, and you need that personal touch when it comes to development at times. So yeah. Also, random note, I am very happy that most guys, obviously not everyone got selected, but most of the guys that were in the green room yesterday that did have tables and stuff like that got selected. And a guy like Isaiah Evans, I'm glad that he went very early on the next day. Really glad for him. Uh, it's kind of tough to see you guys just sitting there, and sitting there with their family. I mean, Isaiah Evans took it in stride. He's the same guy. I mean, this is why you wear the glasses, I guess. But um, you saw like Chris Senek looking like he was gonna have like an aneurysm at some point. So yeah. Grady is gone before the season starts. Yeah, I think so, and I think he wants to be gone. I think he'll be better somewhere else. But I think that that's like Grady's. There's a lot of smoke about that. I don't know what it's for. I think they're gonna try to package him with someone else to get something. But I would imagine that Grady would be gone. This year he's owed 7.1 million. I think there's a lot of directions that they could go. One's to add some money. Just a random. I know it's not the perfect kind of guy, but like Grady for Zachary Ricochet, and then you add in like whatever to like make the money work. Now the tough thing is that the Hawks are hard capped, so they actually want to lose money. So this actually would benefit the Hawks hypothetically, but as the Raptors, you are basically taking on close to $7 more million worth of salary. But yeah, um, it's not. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I'm just using that as an example. That would be a huge, huge get. Okay. Raptors need better scouts. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Um, Amu's going to be gone early in free agency. I mean, it depends if Scotty wants his boy here, and then you opt in and to his like $2.3 million team option. I think it's off the top of my head, but yeah. So yeah, it's on Darko at the end of the day. Yeah, to figure it out. Yes. Darko got better during the season. I'm not a Darko fan, but Darko did improve as a coach. But there's still some ways where it's like you really needed to force his hand through injury to like play the way that last year's team should have been playing more often. Like starting the year out and saying we're going to play 94 feet of defense. How often did I say it here? I was like, that is not sustainable. And it didn't even work early on. Like they started off like what, one in like five or something like that, and then went on a 9 game winning streak. But like they went on the winning streak because they changed their defense to something that was more conservative and fit their actual style of play. The thing with Darko is like how he views basketball. Um, from like a 10,000 foot level is not always how his team. It doesn't always match the personnel that he has, and that's the problem. Is like he might have like I think he's really liked in the sense that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this guy speaks the right way and talks about the cool things, but then you see what he does. It's like okay, so you have Scotty Barnes shooting logo threes. That's both on Barnes and him. What are we doing? Um, didn't really make a lot of sense, did it? We had a bad season. We didn't have a bad season, but didn't. I would have rather had a better pick, if I'm being particularly honest, and I would have rather have not have traded for Brandon Ingram. But the other thing too is that like I wanted like for example, we have to separate regular season and postseason. Scotty Barnes is a perfect example. He had moments during the season where he looked really great, like that Golden State game. But then a couple games later, he had a 9 point game and a 5 point game, right? There for a player who's a 6 year player, he needs to be more consistent. And there needs to be like you selected the guy fourth overall to be a franchise pillar, and I do believe that he is a really good player. So let's not get it twisted. He's a very good player. But for him to be a superstar, for him to be a definitive top 15 all NBA guy, like how he sees himself, there needs to be out of like a 5 game stretch, 3 to 4 of those games needs to be like on it, where he's definitively one of the best 2 players on the court, not the best 4 players on the court across both teams, regardless of who he's playing. Doesn't matter if Luka's on the other side. He needs to be one of the best 2 guys on the court every single night. And on the second night of back to backs, or when you're playing Sacramento near the end of the season, and it's Sacramento, and it's the end of the season, your season should not be on the line with Sacramento where you're losing. You should, as a team, not be embarrassed by the Pelicans like that, with the other guy standing over your guard, and your leaders who are on the court don't do anything. That includes Brandon Ingram. That includes Scotty Barnes. That includes like the list on down. That was like these are things that like you hope gets better. Pirtle having a bad back and me like being like this guy has a bad back the entirety was not good. Scotty Barnes also had a really good postseason. He was not guarded in a way that was like really, really like in a way they disrespected him, but he answered the call. So they basically really guarded a lot of other guys. Like Ingram drew, did not have a great playoffs, but he drew a tough double team night in, night out that Scotty did not draw um, because they were more worried about Ingram going off. What happened? Scotty answered the call and he was able to go into the mid range and drive in and stuff like that because of how, partly because of him being good, but also partly because of how they were guarding him. Um, those are things where moving forward, he needs to play like that all the time and more often, not just when it's like, okay, shoot, we have no one else to go to. So that's my thoughts on the season. And I think that there's a lot of signs that you can get there's a lot of things to look forward to, but I'm very pragmatic with my analysis, you'll find. So I'm not very like I'm not a big homer on this team. I'm not like, oh my gosh, like the Raptors are like better than everyone and can are guaranteed to be top three in the in whatever next year. Last year I had them as finishing seventh. They finished fifth barely, and it came down to the last game of the season, or last games of the season. So, um, yeah, take that for what it is. Grady's a good player. Yeah, he is. He's not owed $17 million. Look at the contract again. It's not $17 million. At least I don't think it's. I will look it up right now. Only because of it. This is the only time I will be looking up contracts. But you're missing out on the point though. So Zachary Richichet's salary. Let's look it up. We're gonna go to Spotrac. It's not. Is it Spotrac? It's not Fanspo. I think it's Sports Track or Spotrac. Okay. Drum roll. So I said around $14 million. You're saying 17. There's a very big difference between the two. $17 million is not this year. He's owed $13 million in his final year, which is a club option. It is $17 million. That is in 2027. So again, I want to focus on the here and now, right now, what's going on, that sort of thing. So yeah. Don't like Mamu. Mamu's okay, but when Mamu's shot isn't working, it's just not really working on it. But yes, and side note, Gio, good call out on his salary, but not this year. The thing with Mamu is that like he maxed out as a bench player on this team for what he can do. And $15 million is going to be an overpay. I don't think that he's going to. I think he'll get like $13 million. I do think that a team will overpay for him, but I don't think the Raptors can really even afford more than 8. I think that they'll try to re-sign him, but I just don't see the value in it, especially with Alan Graves. I think that just things. Yeah, sure, why not? The Pacers also could have used that pick, to be honest. But I think that they made a good decision. But there's an argument to say like, would the Pacers have rather had Zubac or Ademara? That's a good question. I'll have to think about that. It's year 6. We need to move on. I agree. I'm only bringing up the year 6 thing just because the person was saying that was suggesting that I made it seem like they had a bad year. It was an up and down year. That was yeah. And also this year, yes, this is a good point. Daniel's putting it right there. The East has gotten better, so it's more like there's a lot of pressure on the front office right now to get better and to make better moves. You're right. Trace Jackson Davis, who has a team option, is here. So yeah, this is true. You didn't give up a second for TJD for no reason. They pay Nick Richards. Maybe we'll see. Did Goga Patazi, is he under contract? There's some guys that they can like take a swing at. Is the point? I don't think that they have an abundance of cash though. I think for me, I would just suggest that people keep in mind that this free agency class and year is going to be interesting because as teams are jockeying for how they're going to plan out the rest of the next 2 years, let's say, in terms of team building and get used to the new lottery rules, you're going to see some interesting moves. So yeah. But yeah, I back to my point about Ricochet, that rant. My point is that Ricochet, like with Grady, it's a bit about confidence and other factors. And I think Ricochet has a pathway to just be a much more productive player on this squad faster, but neither is a good fit right now. I think you would ideally want to go in a different direction. But yeah. Okay. Think the draft should be done completely. So stay tuned, people. You will. Oh, we're two down. Okay. So Jaron Pierre, whoever wanted Jaron Pierre Jr., he has just been drafted by the New Orleans Pelicans. We have 2 picks left, and we will see. Uh, Out of these 2 picks, I'm curious who you would have wanted more. I'm just curious. I would have wanted Visir, but Visar, but just curious if you would have wanted Onyense or Oniso. Um, yeah, just curious. Why not both? True, good point. Um, so yeah. I don't mind. Again, I know everyone wanted a center. I don't mind Bradley. I think he'll be solid. Um, he might be better than Jamal Shed. Unironically, we'll see. Just offensively, he might be. But I think that everyone's very triggered because of the past couple years. Again, I look back last year, and it's just very, very frustrating. Um, yeah, the thing is like when you get into this point in the draft. Sorry, I have like way too many chords. When you get into this point in the draft, and guys are going for cash, it's even more frustrating. But this is exactly what I mean. It's like, can you be aggressive at the draft? Can you go get those guys? Uh, Trey Kaufman Wren, just drafted by Minnesota. He's a forward, solid. Again, you're at this point in the draft. It's not really that big of a deal. Um, yeah, this is a little annoying. Um, you know what, Gio though? You know what else they could have done? They could have just picked him. You don't like Shed? I think Shed's fine, but Shed to me is like permanently going to always be like a second or third guard. And I think you need someone to push into that because if like the thing is, I don't really like IQ, and one of the reasons why I wanted to 5 on is because I wanted someone who's capable of making IQ move on. Um, the thing with IQ is he shoots the ball really well, but he's not really a point guard in terms of how he views and thinks of the ball of the game. Um, the way that he approaches the game is very it's in such a way that he gets himself into trouble. So he tends to panic and throws up floaters too easily on the offensive end. And the angles that he takes to the hoop and the way that he picks up his dribble early too frequently makes it very frustrating because he's always like a half beat late on the way that he's processing the game. So when his shot is hitting, his shot is hitting. His shot is hitting. But when it's not, it's not. So from a point guard perspective, Jamal Shed has had moments where as a point guard he has shown himself to push up against IQ, but he's a second round pick. Um, that's like a late set, like in the 40s. So yeah, I'm not afraid to see if they can find another guy who can kind of punch up against that. The other thing with Jamal Shed, we're at the last pick of the draft, by the way, people. Um, Jamal Shed's all right, but like when your point guard is shooting Fred Van Vliet numbers, but worse, it's tough. So like I think Jamal Shed from like a heart standpoint and like a heart and soul standpoint, I think he's solid. I think he's actually a value add. I do think he's actually a leader in the locker room, as they say, the clubhouse. Um, and I would keep him, but I would have him as like a pseudo third string point guard who's like probably better than a third string point guard. I mean, he shot 36. Even in the numbers in the playoffs were basically the same, possibly a little bit lower. I'll tell you in a second, but on the season, he shot 36.7% from the field and 32% from deep. And at times, it felt a little Fred Van Vliety in terms of, okay, why is Shed taking this many threes? You have Grady out there. I know Grady had a down year. Grady still shot 35%. Like for all of his woes, he still shot 35%. Um, there were times where even in the playoffs, Shed was a little bit too gun happy. His last couple games, Shed shot 5 of 16, 2 of 9, 7 of 15. That was not bad. These are all in the Cleveland series. 1 of 6 and 1 of 3. Um, Now I know that that's me beating up a lot on Shed. I'm just trying to defend my take. 35% from the field. So I believe he actually shot better during the regular season, which is standard. And he did shoot a little bit better from three at 33% in the playoffs. 33% shooting 6 threes, though, is a lot of threes to be shooting. He did not, and he does not get to the line a lot, and he shot 50% at the line. Whew, those are a lot of things to move to work on, is my point. And you have to get a lot. He has to translate a lot better offensively and defensively. I think he's been overrated. The DBPM ranks him as a net neutral. He is exactly 0 on a DBPM standpoint, and he struggled offensively. So they need someone that can punch up above that long term, or he needs to be able to punch up above that. The other thing with Shed is that you always have to wonder that, hey, Shed is someone who played in Houston. Houston's very much system. So is the defense a system thing or is it not? And is he a better player from a systematic standpoint in a different defensive scheme than what we play? I mean, if you compare him to a guy like Davion Mitchell, who I suggested would get traded that entire time because it's like the second that they drafted Chet, I'm like, this dude's out the door. I'm not advocating for it, but this dude's out the door. But it was so clear, even though the people that were saying, oh, they got to trade Davion because they didn't like Davion for some reason. Davion's a better player. He's a better version of Shed. He's better than that, but like he's not. I don't want to just directly compare the two, but because of the stature, yes, like there's going to be some comparisons. He's actually a bigger player than Shed, but he's also at least I believe he is. But he is also he's just a better defensive player than Shed at point of attack defense and stuff like that. Um, he's going to get real minutes on the Heat this year. He got real minutes on the Heat last year. So yeah, I think he'll improve though. Shed will improve, and I think he's here to stay. And I think he plays a role, and I think he's 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 got very good leadership qualities. Um, but yeah, uh, I talked probably way too much about Shed just now. Sorry if I went on a rant there. So you're telling me that yeah, it was very raw. Yeah, you know what? But that was under. Remember, that was under the Masai. So there's your difference between Masai and whatever. Is Bobby is less willing to make any sort of risk. Um, so yeah. So Shed may or may not be playable, and you have that correct. Yes. Um, the good thing is that free agency is here. Summer League is here. I will be covering Summer League on this channel, so stay tuned, stay locked in. People, I've been live for 2 hours, I would really like it and really appreciate it if you helped that algorithm for me, and gave me a like or a subscriber. And if you're watching this later, if you could comment down below. I do try my best to respond to every single comment. May not in as timely of a fashion as I can. So yeah. I will also say thank you everyone who is here so far for the lively discussions. Um, Thank you. And I have not seen you around too often, but thank you for tuning in. Don't miss a day. I also appreciate the username. Um, uh, Gio, thank you for tuning in as always. I hope you enjoyed it. Same with Daniel. I think we're getting to the end of the stream. Just need to give my voice a little bit of a break. Free agency trades, like Bob's saying, Rogers will pay that. I don't know if they will, but yeah, Nick Richards signing coming. I could see this. It's not pretty, but I could see it. James, welcome as always. Everyone, if you tuned in, really welcome. Daryl, uh, Art, I guess it's retweet Dryano. Bill Nation, welcome. Cool Cato, if you're here, welcome, and thank you. And yeah, anyone else that I'm missing, it's been great. So yeah, I don't think Grady will be traded. I think he will be traded at some point, um, but I don't know what for. It might not be sexy. It might be like a Yves Misi type thing. Um, and shout out to Will as well. People, take care. I am out and enjoy the rest of your evening. And also Canada. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't watch the end of the Bosnia stuff, but Canada should be moving on to the knockout stage of the tournament, round of I think 32. Stay tuned and watch the World Cup a little bit here and there. So yeah, have I seen Richards' injury history? I don't want to look at that, so no thanks. Uh, but yeah, take care, people, and peace.